Hi boys and girls, welcome to our integrated study session. Today we will be looking at how living things depend on non-living things for survival. Non-living things, non-living things, non-living things are important to living things because they help them to survive. Take for instance, food, clothing and shelter are non-living things, but are important to living things' survival. Yes, boys and girls, non-living things are important for living things' survival. Living things need non-living things to survive. Without food, water, and air, living things would die. Sunlight, shelter, and soil are also important for living things. Now, boys and girls, we're going to be looking at a few pictures to help us understand how living things need non-living things to survive. Let's look at our first picture. What are we seeing? A plant. Now, the picture has some labels on it. Can you tell me the labels? All right, sunlight, carbon dioxide, oxygen, water. Now let's see if we can figure out what these things do to the plant that would help it to survive. So the carbon dioxide from the air with the sunlight and water help the plant to make food. The oxygen that we're seeing on the picture is what we get from the plant. Yes, so we get oxygen from the plant, and this oxygen helps us to breathe. Now let's look at the next picture. What are we seeing here? A family. Where is the family? In a house. Now who can tell me what the house is providing for the family? Go ahead. Shelter. So the house is providing shelter. What else can we see from the picture? What are they doing? Okay, they are eating. Excellent. Humans need food to survive, and they also need somewhere to live and clothes to wear. These are all a part of their basic needs. Now, children, we're going to be looking at the third and final picture. Right here. What are we seeing in this picture? All right, we're seeing a dog, a cat, and a house. What is this house for? The dog. Who can tell me the name of this house that belongs to the dog? Okay, it's a kennel. This is where the dog lives. Excellent. So you see, humans might live in a house, but the dog, which is an animal, but it's also a living thing, they too need shelter, and so they live in a kennel. Excellent job. Now, children, we're going to be doing an activity. You're going to be using some of your vocabulary words to see how well you can use what you know about them to complete this paragraph. Now, here are the words. Let's say the words together. Shelter, grow, provide, food, alive, living things, survival, water. Let's look at the paragraph. Living things are things that are blank. Blank depend on non-living things for blank. They depend on each other because living creatures need blank and the non-living things blank shelter. The non-living things like blank and blank are helping living things by making them blank. Living things are things that are alive. Living things depend on non-living things for survival. They depend on each other because living creatures need shelter and the non-living things provide shelter. The non-living things like food and water, you can also have water and food in that order, are helping living things by making them grow. Let's look at this picture, children. We're going to be using this picture to create a tally chart with some questions that are given. After we have created the tally chart, we're going to be completing some mathematical sentences using less than, greater than, or equal to. Okay, children, we're looking for the animals that depend on water as a habitat. Children, please be reminded that we're using the animals that we see in the picture to create the tally chart. So how many animals do you see in the picture that depend on water as a habitat? Excellent job. 4 animals. Now let's move on to the next one. How many animals depend on grass for food? Wonderful. 1 animal. All right? Now, how many animals depend on nuts for food? Yes, nuts. Great job. 1 animal. Now to the final one. How many animals depend on air for survival? All the animals that you're seeing. Now go ahead and count and tell me how many animals we're seeing. Excellent job. 12 animals. Here is our tally chart. We're not finished yet. Remember that we're going to be completing some mathematical sentences using less than, greater than, and equal to. Now let's look at the tally chart to help us in answering these questions. Okay, so we have 1 animal that depends on grass for food, and we also have 1 animal that depends on nuts for food. Now, would this be less than, greater than, or equal to? Excellent job. Equal to. Wonderful. Now let's look at the next one. The number of animals that depend on air for survival is blank the number of animals that depend on water for habitat. Okay, so we said that 12 animals depend on air for survival, and 4 animals depend on water for habitat. Now, children, would this be less than, greater than, or equal to? Excellent job. Greater than, because 12 is greater than 4. Wonderful. Give yourselves a pat on the shoulder. Okay, here's the final sentence. The number of animals that depend on grass for food is blank the number of animals that depend on water for habitat. Okay, 1 animal depends on grass for food, and 4 animals depend on water for habitat. Now let's see. Less than, greater than, or equal to? Excellent job. Less than, because 1 is less than 4. Wonderful job, boys and girls. Give yourselves a pat on the shoulder. Now, children, this is the end of today's lesson. I hope you had as much fun as I did. See you next time. Be safe.